Hey, welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. I'm Johnny Venerable. That's Bo Brock. That's Damien Anderson. We are back, gentlemen. Round two. Live yesterday, live today's training camp rolls on for the Arizona Cardinals, and we're feeling good ahead of Baltimore, Bo.
Yeah, we absolutely are, especially when we're going to get our first glimpse of the top draft pick for the Arizona Cardinals, albeit the second round. Trey McBride. Cliff saying today, Damien, that he's playing. He's playing. So we're going to see number 85 out there, Ocho Cinco for the Arizona Cardinals, and see what this top playmaking tight end can do out there for the Cards.
Well, hopefully he can play like Chad Johnson and go and make some plays. But I know, with anticipation, being a second round pick, guys, we talk about this. There's a lot of expectations on him, but I wouldn't say that it's more than warranted, right? This team is heavily loaded. We've talked about it extensively at the wide receiver position. I think having Zach Ertz there subdues some of that pressure. One thing that I heard one of the players that I played with that's now in the part of the directors is Quentin Harris, and they talked about drafting him and wanting to see him, that not wanting to see him, but his ability to pass block. And while that's cool and all, I just want to see his athleticism out there one-on-ones against linebackers. I'm excited to see him play.
Picking spreads. Hey, what's up, man? Picking spreads. Fan of the show. Fan of PHNX Cardinals. I got duped into a fake Jaguar account earlier today while you guys were out being productive. Somebody had cropped the Jaguars transaction list. It looked legitimate and said we've signed Ndamukong Suh, and I'm like, oh, not an option for the Cardinals. They never really had any interest. And then later, I had to admit that it was a fake account, picking spreads through some shaded Jaguar fans, and then they came after
me. That's
Jaguar
2 times
fans
this year, Johnny.
I got to be more It looked real. And now I'm mad at Jaguar faithful. Come on now. I'd expect that from Niner fans, not Jaguar fans. What's up, Kyle? Hey, Bo. How has JJ Watt been looking in training camp? Is he healthy? Good question.
Yeah, he is healthy. Today was a heavy vet day, though. It was we didn't see very many veterans out there. We even saw not a whole lot of Kyler Murray. It was install day today, so it was pretty much seeing the guys that we're going to see on Sunday play against the Baltimore Ravens. So Trace McSorley assumed QB1. We only saw a little bit of Kyler Murray. He didn't even really get back there with the ones. It was all Trace and Jared Garantano, and we didn't see JJ Watt today, but he's been healthy. Look, he's been healthy and debunking, a lot of people criticizing JJ Watt and his inability to stay on the football field. And JJ's been very, transparent and truthful about his struggles with that, especially the last couple seasons. So yeah, JJ Watt looks healthy. Probably won't see him the entire preseason. And Johnny, that was something that was brought up today when we talked to Hollywood Brown. And I know that you're a big proponent of, we don't need to see these guys. I don't care if they're making their, Cardinals debuts on September 11th. You think that this preseason stuff is more just what Cliff sees it as, an evaluation for the younger players.
Yeah, and truth be told, Damien can speak to that better than I can, having been in the NFL. But here's what I would say. Guys with proven track records, especially guys who have mileage on their body like JJ Watt. I get last year, it was a bummer. He got hurt right away. The conditioning drill, he was out for most of the preseason. He's trying to ingratiate himself with a new team, learn the defense. I get all that. This year, Watt should not play until September 11th. He should be put in bubble wrap. He keeps himself in tremendous physical condition. The Cardinals, gentlemen, are banking on some older players to play key roles again. Rodney Hudson, AJ Green, JJ Watt, and at 70 to 75% is what we need over the course of 17 games, of their peak self. We're not expecting, outright Pro Bowl seasons, especially from Watt and AJ Green. But you let the young guys fight it out. You let the Greg Dortches of the world prove themselves. You let, the Victor Dumakagis come out and do what they did Friday night. And again, I go back, Damien, to my consistent messaging as it relates to Cliff Kingsbury, how he runs practice. And I'll knock on the biggest thing of wood I can find. He is somebody who runs a light camp. Typically, the Cardinals are not associated with these other teams with a bunch of injuries, and they always come out and they play really well at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, maybe there's something to be said about that. It's about a balance, guys, right? But at the same time, when you have that investment in each player, millions upon millions of dollars, the risk isn't worth the reward to play guys in the preseason. I think it's about timing, right? Maybe if you give them a series or two just to maybe get the psychological impact in there, but I'd really leave it up to the discretion, of the player, right? Like if this is something you want to do week by week, but I think that they're taking a cautious approach to preseason. They know that guys are probably roughly getting $500-$600 a week for this time. Doesn't really mean anything. They get, it's like going live at practice during full go up periods or just, stay up periods. So when it comes to playing in a preseason game, Johnny, as you mentioned, it's for those guys that are in those positional battles.
And that's why, Damien, they shouldn't take it away, right? Do you agree with they should have some sort of a preseason?
Yeah, absolutely, because you have to evaluate. I think it's definitely it's important, coaches to evaluate against real competition. You can only do so much, right? And that's limited, and it keeps the fans engaged and gives that whole life cycle, right? From player to fan, it gives players an opportunity to prove themselves, make a team, and it gives fans the opportunity to go to the game, right? And throughout this process, you got to have evaluation periods, and that's what the three preseason games represent.
Bo, the Cardinals cut a linebacker today. People in the chat want to know, does that mean that we are trading for Roquan Smith? I think that's a hard yes. I'm going to go ahead and have you confirm that right now on the pod.
Yeah, let's do it. Actually, let's debunk that right now. I mean, Jesse Lumiere, who played very well against the Bengals in the preseason.
He was great.
You're probably, well, what gives? Why did he get released? I bet they're doing Lumiere probably a favor here, Damien. I think he's probably they see the numbers game, and he's not going to make the roster, and they're giving him a chance to go out there and probably find a spot elsewhere. That's probably what's going on with Lumiere, who, by the way, his name, it sounds a lot like Jussie Smollett, the disgraced actor from that big scandal.
I was going to say Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast, the candlestick. I want to get to this comment here because this is funny. Tyler Brenson in the chat. Are we ever going to sign a cornerback?
Oh, man.
Tyler, I think you know the answer to that question. And then Abbott 777, Benson, don't get hopes up. Whoever we will get will be, quote, ass. And we talked about that ad nauseum, gentlemen and ladies, that we're at the point now where, we don't expect a big trade. We expect 53-man roster cuts and for them to claim people. The roster is set. The good news, though, is it looks like guys like Josh Jackson, Bo, having a good camp, potential almost pick 6 today. So there's some positives, but it is concerning. I do think the defensive side is the side that remains in flux. Feels like the offense is set.
Yeah, I mean, the offense, they're just trying to figure out what the playmaker room looks like outside of, the top 4 wide receivers and your tight ends. And of course, that running back room that we keep talking about, where does Keontae Ingram fit? Where does Jonathan Ward fit? Are they going to carry 5-6 guys? Those are the remaining questions as far as the offense. The defense is completely, open as far as, linebackers and the pass rushers go in that cornerback room. Could they have been opening up a spot to sign one of the cornerbacks we've seen already cast off from other teams? It's possible because they don't have to get down the roster anymore for another week, Johnny, and then it's final cut down day. So they're probably going to try to get somebody in here to at least work out. Is it a DeAndre Baker situation? They freed up a roster spot, I think, to fill a roster spot. I just don't think you're going to be happy with the final result. It's not going to be a big splash name. I can't imagine yet, but I think they're going to roll and evaluate with the guys. They've got to figure out, is Josh Jackson, is he somebody that is capable of playing significant snaps, going from second round pick to kind of a bust for the Packers. And then also a guy like Christian Matthew, who it comes out of Valdosta State. And we heard from Christian today, and it's just really interesting. I wanted to be like, who's your damn mentor in the locker room? Like, it's such a young room, Damien. It's like Byron Murphy Jr. and Antonio Hamilton are the old heads, and they've barely been in the league 4 or 5 seasons. Yeah,
you just have to remember what got you there, right? As a player, whatever those foundational principles, being prepared, performing, and protecting your job. As a player, that's all you can do. And I think in terms of watching guys like Byron Murphy, they may have obviously more grace and have more freedom to do things or take days off, right? You don't have that luxury. So you have to go out there, play hard every day, earn the coach's trust and your players' trust so they feel comfortable putting you in the football game. And not to mention making plays, right? Everyone on that football field is expected to do their job foundationally then make plays as well, because you don't want to just do your job and let opposing quarterbacks and receivers catch passes or throw balls on you and you make tackles. You're like, hey, 10 yards, 10 yards, 10 yards. But you have to be able to anticipate, get PBUs and or get interceptions and feel like the Cardinals have value when you're playing. But, guys, I know that we're talking about this discrepancy or the issues or the uncertainty with the defense, right? But I think it's almost expected. Look at the spending offensively, look at the cap space available and the lack thereof of intentions to sign someone defensively, and the lack thereof of spending. I know some guys in the chat yesterday mentioned, a lot of guys are on their rookie deals, but you just mentioned obviously Marcus Golden being at a cost-friendly price to the club. J.J. Watt, not sure what his contract is at the latter part of the year, but you got Jalen Thompson on a rookie deal. Buda Baker's been re-signed. So there's some pieces there, and you would think, to me, it shows me that they feel confident in what they have and that whatever's out there, guys, it's not better than the current roster that they have.
It just feels like Damien and Bo, they've been burned by guys in the past, like a Jordan Phillips, where they go out and they spend money and you're only going to get a Jordan Hicks once in a blue moon, right? And everybody wanted to bench Jordan Hicks after his first 2 years, including myself. Like, it's about as good as it gets in free agency. Outside of a Chandler Jones trade, I mean, most of the guys that the Cardinals have had that have been all worldly defensively, they have drafted and developed, from Patrick Peterson, Darnell Dockett, Calais Campbell, Carlos Dansby.
Dansby came back now.
He did. He went and got that South Beach money, and then came back, and then went to Cleveland, and then came back again. But
we've talked about Johnny. I think that they've done a good job finding pieces over the years and guys resurrecting their careers. I mean, we just talked about John Abraham, Carlos Dansby, and I know that there's a couple other players as well that don't necessarily hit it home here and hit it home elsewhere. I mean, we saw that with the Cardinals, first round pick from a school back east and got paid. Did he go to, was it Carolina or something? Who am I thinking?
Hassan Reddick.
There we go. Hassan Reddick. So, I mean, that happens. I'd wonder what his success rate is. Steve Campbell. I think we've talked about it in terms of roster picks over the years.
I think he's really good at drafting defensive backs. Tyrann Mathieu, Byron Murphy. I think he can draft guys who can cover. Jalen Thompson. I think he struggles with front seven players outside of pass rusher. Here's something for front seven. Tyler Benson asking, but I'll let you take this one. What's your all's honest take on Nick Vigil, the free agent signing from Minnesota, more than likely starting? You think he fills Hicks' spot, as we were just mentioning, Jordan, or is it a major drop-off, Bo?
I think Vigil probably cracks the starting lineup to start things out, but he's a two-down guy. He's not going to be somebody you're going to see play all three downs and being a guy that's going to be Jordan Hicks. They're different players, completely different players as far as what they're going to command playing time-wise. But I think as far as what they want to do defensively, it's going to be Zaven Collins is going to be the key cog in the middle of that defense, and then Nick Vigil will help as far as the sideline kind of off-the-ball linebacker spots. So, yeah, and we'll see what the star linebacker position looks like once the cloak of trying to disguise everything before the regular season for Isaiah Simmons. But yeah, Nick Vigil, I think it's his job to lose. He probably won't even have an opportunity to really truly lose it in preseason.
Brother Numsy in the chat says, I rewatched the game. Collins really looked like he didn't want it. And I think that was the initial takeaway, Brother Numsy, from a lot of us. It's just like underwhelming. And then you go back and he did some good things, but he's not a flashy player right now. I think they brought in Nick Vigil for the purpose of trying to help him get over that hump, but no one, and Zaven shouldn't look at this either, like Nick Vigil shouldn't be a threat to Zaven Collins, whereas Jordan Hicks right now, make an argument, is a better football player in a lot of different ways than Zaven Collins. So they let Jordan Hicks go. They save some money. They're not paying Nick Vigil anything. And so here's another veteran we can put in the room with Zaven, somebody that can start with our base defense, but it's showcasing it to Zaven. Like, this is your position group. And we've seen it during training camp, Bo and Damien, where it's like he's leading the position drills with the linebackers. He's by and large the most athletic linebacker. If we're assuming Isaiah Simmons plays a different position altogether, it's Zaven. But it's like the mental aspect is, I think, so immense that it doesn't allow him to play free and easy. And as a result, Damien, you get the product of what we got on Friday night.
Absolutely. When you always say, paralysis by analysis, Johnny, and I don't know. I think that you look at him and he's everything that you want. If you created a linebacker or a football player, I think it would be the ideal player is Zaven Collins. He's what it looks like, and there can be so much. Those are intangibles, but at the end of the day, he's hired to do one job. It's not to lead drills. Is not to look good in pads. It's to be a leader of that defense and be the first-round draft pick that make plays. Let's just call it what it is. He's expected to make plays, disrupt offenses, anticipate what's going on, and be a leader of that defense. That's the expectation you have of your middle linebacker being drafted in the first round, one of the top 20 players.
Tackles for loss, sacks, picks, pressures, just causing – like you watch Fred Warner play the Cardinals every year, and he just causes chaos. Same thing, Navarro Bowman.
Problem.
The Cardinals haven't had somebody like that for a long time, and it's funny. Like they keep taking swings, and you can't force it. It's just going to have to come organically.
It's got to be there's got to be some sort of something going on as far as how the position is scouted. I was watching Hard Knocks last night, and they had Malcolm Rodriguez, who's like this 6th round middle linebacker that's making a big, all the coaches are turning their heads watching this kid practice. He just seems to practice the right way. And they said at that position, an off the ball linebacker, they'd never seen a player in 5 years in Detroit make a play that this guy Rodriguez made. And they were shocked by it. And I think that you're probably seeing this around the league. It's just a lost art as far as playing that position. I mean, we know about Bobby Wagner's, we know about, Fred Warner's, like all the guys that kind of stand out. But then I think there's a big drop off as far as being able to play that position and play it at a high level. I will say this about Zaven. Yeah, go ahead, DA.
No, I was going to say, Bo, there's so much importance that we as the media or even fans don't understand about being a student of the game. And I think that's what you're explaining about Rodriguez, Bo. And just to me, it's just anticipation. Knowing your job, knowing the expectations, like being a student studying. And I don't know if it's a disconnect between the coaching staff and being able to teach or, the ways, right? There's several different teachers and there's ways in which different people absorb that information. So maybe Zaven and the position coach aren't connecting with what they, whatever the process is. But unfortunately, he's the boss, he's the player, and that's what they have right now. And we gonna find out if he could figure it out and progress throughout the year. And I wouldn't put that much pressure on preseason games. I mean, I hope he continues to get better. But I think the real test, obviously, September 11th against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Johnny, to answer 91 Claycomb in our chat here saying, we're overreacting as far as the middle linebacker spot goes. I'll say this, like just watching Zaven in practice and rewatching the film, once he turns the corner, if it happens, he's going to be a beast. He's going to be an absolute beast. And we see game record about Roquan Smith in there. Like Zaven Collins can reach that level. No doubt about it. Like
guys, I'm going to raise my hand. I'm going to raise my hand on this one. I got to comment on 91 Claycomb. Guys, did he not play linebacker in college?
He did.
So it's still reading and reacting based on what the offensive line does, right? So it's not like he's playing a brand new position.
Sure. He wasn't a middle linebacker. He was a will linebacker in a 4-3 or 3-3, but he still stood up and he won the Buckus Award.
Right.
He was the nation's top linebacker at the collegiate level. Not unlike Simmons, who play all over the place.
Right. I mean, we get the Swiss Army knife who may have some difficulties because coaches can create packages for Simmons, right, in college. Hey, and when they do this, you do this. When they do this, when they do that, you do this. So, I mean, I understand that. And possibly being at a school like Tulsa, being that size and just letting them run free, Johnny and Bo, that can be what happened. Like a guy being that much physically dominant that there wasn't really a lot of coaching foundational work going on, and that's maybe why the transition's been so difficult for Isaiah.
So somebody told me on the sideline, I'm not going to say who because I'm not going to out them, when we were watching practice, said the same thing about Zaven, is that when he was at Tulsa, he was just bigger, faster, stronger than everybody else and could play instinctually and just dominate, and his mistakes weren't as glaring because he was just a physical specimen.
Because it's
right.
Tulsa.
Because he's 6'5", 260 and should have been playing, down the road at Oklahoma, right? For Kyler Murray's alma mater. But he wasn't. So he was kind of rack. And that's always the concern when you take these small school guys. Will it translate? But Bo, I do feel like with the Hassan Reddick comparison, I think that's probably the most fair when you think about he was overwhelmed his first couple years in the NFL, and then he had a position change, but the light bulb turned on in year 4 after being at Temple and this, that, and the other. Like, I feel like Zaven could be on the same kind of trajectory. I just hope the Cardinals put him in a better position to succeed.
I think they are.
Johnny, sorry, Bo, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are. I mean, I see Arizona Animal in the chat as well saying, they need to take a little bit off his plate, calling plays. And I see him out there in practice, and he's getting the defense set, and it doesn't seem like I think he's come a couple steps further from where he was, where we were concerned at the beginning of training camp. I mean, this is a young guy. He's just entering his second season. I should say that a lot of us need to, maybe have a little bit more patience with Zaven Collins. I mean, it's going to take time for him to develop, but he kind of got a wild streak to him, and that's going to be fun to see. Like if it ever clicks for him, because it's going to be scary for opposing offenses to know, like, maybe you don't want to turn the corner on a guy like Zaven Collins, because he's going to put somebody on their ass. And I liked when he was playing with a little reckless abandon, and that's the whole thing. It's like, if he can just react out there, you're putting him in the best position to succeed. And if the Arizona Cardinals can harness that in any way, I think he's going to be making an impact somehow, potentially 17 games this season.
Well, guys, do you think, Johnny, do you think that's, I mean, I know that you talked about the trajectory similarity between him and Hassan Reddick. Do you think it's that they should do that, make that move sooner or later? I mean, I thought before the season, they should. Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote an article, go PHNX.com, shameless plug, 99 cents for the first month, that they should have moved him to outside linebacker during the offseason. And, that was when they didn't listen. No, they didn't. I was still under the impression, too, that Simmons was going to play there exclusively. But when they made Simmons this new position that's more so in the secondary, I knew then they're not going to move him. But I think about what he did against Dallas last year. I think that his skill set translates really well to somebody, and he may not have natural pass rush moves, but what for this defense? Yeah, and he's terrific against the run. Like, he gave Dallas's other tackle, Layla Collins, fits last year in that game in Dallas, because it was just mano, right? And I know that we want to make excuses. I do. I try to make excuses for him all the time, but like, this is the NFL, man. And if you're not ready to call defenses in your second year and you were the 16th overall pick, like, we're not trying to harp on this too much, but like, that's a red flag. Like, come on now. You were a top 20 draft pick.
Dude, hold on. Now, I mean, JJ Watt said that, in Houston, they gave him the opportunity to call plays, and he wouldn't wish that upon anyone.
He's a defensive lineman.
I understand where he is on the field, but it's not something that is easy. It's tougher than just knowing the playbook and regurgitating what
he was. He was an all academic player. He was. I thought he was going to be.
And you probably made a couple honor rolls. I mean, I don't know about that.
Let's not go there. All right, I got to get an ad read in, guys. You can gamble on this game on Sunday. I'm not sure if you heard about this or not. DraftKings Sportsbook. The Cardinals are a 5-point underdog at home. Screw that. They're going to beat the Ravens and snap their 21-game win streak in the preseason, which is just. That's just laughable. Black helmets, yes, please download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code PHNX. Make your first deposit, get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code PHNX only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Trace McSorley to Trey McBride, yes, please. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See those show notes for details.
I don't want to take a whole lot of flack for this, but I think that it's a smart bet to go with Baltimore in this game, and that's not.
You're not a real fan.
That's not. It's not about not being a real fan. It's about what team actually gives a shit about getting a win in this game. And Baltimore, for whatever reason, it's kind of funny how much they want to win in the preseason. Now it's kind of become a parody of itself, and that's not an indictment on the Cardinals at all. I'm just saying, for whatever reason, Baltimore thinks they're probably going to hang a stupid banner or something at this point.
Cardinals haven't won at home since last October against Houston. They're thirsty for a home victory.
No, they don't care about this. It's all about evaluation. It's all about evaluation for Cliff. If I'm wrong, I'll say I was wrong. But Let's also talk about something that's right. No, man, is it so right? Four Peaks, our monthly last Wednesdays, right around the corner. Join us all day at Four Peaks on August 31st for some good food, some good fun, and some great beer. Speaking of last Wednesday, we're announcing our next winner there for the Enter the Toast of the Month sweepstakes. Go enter yourself at gophnx.com. Get yourself a $50 Four Peaks gift card, a PHNX shirt of your choice, and a PHNX annual membership. Just click the link in the show notes here on the YouTube channel or, of course, on our wherever you're listening to your podcast. If you're drinking, you must be 21 years or older. And, of course, you want to do that responsibly.
Jordan P. in the chat wants some video from Trey McBride. Here's the deal. We normally have video from camp. We're moving studios.
No,
I appreciate it because I feel like people come to expect it, and producer Emma is not here. Your boy's producing the show today because we have a wholesale change that's coming with a fancy new studio en route.
That's true, but it has nothing to do with why we don't have any footage of Trey McBride. Damien, you know this. Like, there's portions of the practice that are open, and then there are portions that are closed. And Trey McBride was balling out while we didn't see it, but we saw it with our own eyes. I saw two incredible plays by the second round pick. One, this is going to suck for the guy.
Say it,
but it was over number 25.
No,
it was more a great play by Trey McBride, just plucking one over the head of Zaven Collins, and then another play.
He
did moss him.
Zaven Collins was Pro Football Focus's highest rated coverage linebacker in the history of their website. Is his college career just a farce, like a mirage?
Calm down on all of this.
Somebody in the chat said something that I want to
just throw more dirt on his.
No, we're going to talk more about it. I want to talk more about Zaven because that's what people want to talk about. Somebody in the chat, it was a really good comment here, talking about how Zaven was overdrafted. I don't feel like Zaven was overdrafted. I feel like that draft was really, really unfortunate for people not picking in the first 10 to 13 picks. When you've got it's a historically great top 10 draft. And then there's a colossal drop off. I mean, Micah Parsons and those guys went 10 or 11, 12. And then the Cardinals got really the short end of the stick. When you look at the players that went ahead of them and Zaven, I mean, they would have been on all, they wanted to trade up for J.C. Horn. They loved Patrick Surtain. They loved Rashawn Slater. They liked all these guys. Now, you can make an argument Keim should have been more aggressive. We know they were sniffing around the tight end that went to Atlanta. So I feel like Zaven was very much like, here's the mistake, and this is the comment I was looking for. The mistake would have been not trading down if you had an option to trade down. But, I mean, it was an underwhelming pick when they made it. It was a pick that came out of left field. That being said, I will not jump off the bandwagon until I get 17 games of him starting, and I'll make an assessment then, Damien. Like, I can't – like, if he starts this year, I'll be able to sit back in January and just take it holistically and say, okay, he's on the rise. I feel good about this. Or this was a mistake, and they need to make a decision this offseason.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement, Johnny. I think we want to see progress from Zaven from year to year, game to game, from recognition to his performance, right? And, I mean, we could go back and forth on reasons why they picked him or the reasons why he isn't productive or, hey, he should be at defensive end. That's where he looks naturally fit in terms of his body size. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking about the backers that you named, Johnny, like Fred Warner or even guys, during my era like Ray Lewis. Those Mike linebackers are usually between like 6 foot, 6'2", and they could scoot. They can move sideline to sideline, and they're in the backfield getting TFLs. And I know that Zaven was a workout freak, right? Size and speed. And I think it's going to be a process of him just figuring it out. And I hope he continues to progress. I mean, look how fans were about Isaiah his first year and then his second year, right? He was the, Swiss Army knife, and he could do a lot of things, and he was making plays, and he was progressing, right? In terms of his playmaking ability, you saw his confidence grow. I think if you get that same type of progress from Zaven, I think that we're all sitting here at the end of the year like, okay, we're happy about that Mike position, right? You don't necessarily have to be a star, but I think if you show progress in the top 3 of your team in terms of making tackles or, I mean, I'm not going to say interceptions or anything. Let's just say, leading top 5 in terms of TFLs, top 3 in terms of tackles. Hey, I mean, I'm happy with those type of numbers for Zaven Collins this year.
And just to stay on the playing field, I mean, that's really what I think the fan base wants to see. Defensively played like 20% of the snaps last year. That has to go way up. And I imagine just out of
Well, that can't
necessity.
happen. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
no-brainer though. Like, I
absolutely.
mean, yeah, I think Johnny, I heard him say 75. Like, it needs to be like 80 to 90% of the plays. Like, he needs to be out there in terms of value versus performance. Like, that's
Well, they
what
they don't have anybody else. Like, if Tanner Vallejo's starting over Zaven Collins this year, then it's the biggest dumpster fire on the team.
Yeah.
So I think you can take solace in knowing that they haven't brought in anybody of a serious threat, right? Nick Vigil, I don't think is a threat to play over him consistently. So for better or worse, the defense as a whole, it's for better or worse. The cornerback room, certainly, opposite Marcus Golden at linebacker, for better or worse, we're going to go with a bunch of these guys and see what sticks. So Zaven's just a part of that as a group, but I have more confidence than probably I'm showcasing today. I want to get back to this comment here, Bo, get your take on it. So Kyle Haley asks, or states, I liked how Hollywood Brown handled himself in the press conference. So for those of you who don't know, Hollywood Brown, Arizona's newest acquisition at receiver, spoke to Bo and the media today about his arrest, about ingratiating himself into this Cardinal offense. And Bo, I thought he showed a lot of maturity.
Yeah, he said going to learn from it, and he's embarrassed by it, and he's a guy that never gets in trouble. So it's kind of adds a little bit more to it. And Hollywood Brown seems, it's been a couple days, it's been over a week. So, as far as we're not going to truly see him like remorseful about it, it looks like he's moving on and the Cardinals are moving on from it. But you see that he's a good kid. He's a guy that probably won't make that mistake once again. And yeah, he, as much as he could, because when you're in a situation, I would just only assume it's still an ongoing legal process. So he can't say, hey, I was going 126 on the 101 southbound at 7 a.m, because then they'd be like, yeah, you were. That's an admission of, that's an admission of guilt. So let's just we'll save it for what he can say right now about the case. But now we're getting more into Hollywood Brown, the football player, and how exciting it's going to look with him reuniting with Kyler Murray, getting out there week 1 of this NFL season, and being that wide receiver 1 for this Cards team, for the first 6 weeks of the year.
Yeah, guys, I think it was important for him to take accountability, acknowledge it, let it, Bo, as you mentioned, let it go through the legal process, and then all is forgotten when you score touchdowns.
Yep.
I mean, that's the nature of the beast. I'm sorry, people love winners. At the end of the day, they love performance.
I love winners. Yeah,
and they love stars. So all is forgotten. I'm not, I absolutely, hope that he learns from that lesson. I mean, one thing that Denny Green used to always say and tell us every day is that Arizona is a wide open town. Everything that everything that you want is available. And be home. Don't be in the streets past midnight. So whatever time it was. I mean, it's just things that people with experience you learn to listen to, right? And there's nothing good out there. And I mean, I understand. I'm not going to get into the story about what time it was and where it was going, but it's just that when you plan, you don't have to, and you're prepared. You don't have to make those type of immediate and sudden decisions, right? Like, allegedly speeding, going 126, trying to make it to practice. Like, I mean, you don't have to do that. If you leave a little bit earlier than you have to. So, not to be the dad on the show, you know what I mean? The senior guy.
We're all dads. My
we are,
7-year-old
right?
thankfully can't drive yet.
But you know what I mean? I think it was good for him to take accountability, get people to look past it, and just get him to make plays. At the end of the day, that's what they want to see is those black helmets and Hollywood Brown making plays.
Brian, I'm going to disagree with you here. And Brian in the chat says Andy Isabella could score 5 TDs in 5 weeks. All is not forgotten. I would throw a flipping parade for little Andy if he is lighting up Kansas City and Las Vegas the first couple of weeks. I think take a face turn in wrestling when you go from a heel to a face. Right now, Andy Isabella is a heel once upon a time, as was Hassan Reddick, and it turned really quickly when you start to produce on the field. This is a great question dating back to our conversation about Vance Joseph. 91 Claycomb asks, Johnny Bo, how bad would Vance have ruined Micah Parsons? Laughing my ass off. I think there are fair questions to ask. Does Vance Joseph put young players in the best position to succeed, especially within the front seven? Because I think he does pretty well with defensive backs because he was one. I think that's been his specialized position. I think Billy Davis probably has too much say, which is not a great thing. He was a failed DC for the Cardinals once upon a time for Ken Wisenhunt. There is something to be said about a defensive coordinator like a Dan Quinn, and I put Todd Bowles in this group as well, that can take a high draft pick and immediately make them a star. Like, I have no confidence that Vance Joseph can do that. Could it take a couple of years? Probably. And that's not what you want in today's NFL. When you're paying these guys nothing, we got to determine year 1 and 2 what Hassan Reddick is, because the Cardinals fudged up, did not pick up his 5th-year option. He balls out and he leaves. And they screwed that up. So we're going to do the same thing with Isaiah Simmons, Bo, and Zaven Collins, where it's like, let's, drag our feet in the first 12 to 18 months we have this guy. By the time they've blossomed, we haven't picked up their 5th-year option, or we haven't started negotiations, and somebody else is going to get somebody else right now. Philadelphia is going to get Hassan Reddick's best years of his career. That should be happening in Arizona. And Vance Joseph, to me, there's some truth to that, Clay Combe, that I do feel like, Bo, I don't have enough trust to just keep giving him high draft picks. That's why I don't really care.
Well, hold on. Let's be fair. I mean, let's be fair. Vance Joseph was the last one to get his hands on Hassan Reddick. He had 3 defensive coordinators in his 4 years here in the desert. There was a lot of turnover. There was a change in scheme completely. They went from a 3-4 to a 4-3 back to a 3-4. And then they finally got him in the position where, I think something clicked for Hassan Reddick, obviously. But, is that on Vance Joseph? I mean, if you can give a little credit to Vance Joseph for putting Hassan Reddick in the right spot where the previous coaches weren't putting him in the position to succeed. So I'm not going to be too harsh on him. It looks like he's going to have a role for both Cameron Thomas and Myjai Sanders, 2 young pass rushers who look good against Cincinnati. We even saw packages where they were both in on a play, both playing left outside linebacker. So I think that, he's learning from his mistakes. I just think it's maybe a little bit of a misconception. I know that, and I think a guy like Micah Parsons, his talent is Teflon. He's so good, you're not going to be able to screw that up either. But let's, Vance Joseph has done a pretty good job with the talent that he's had on his defensive side of the football. I know you're not big in analytics, Johnny, but to be 6th in DVOA, to be a top 10 group for the most part, to bend, don't break with some of those defenses and the talent or lack thereof that they had. I think Vance Joseph has done a good job as a DC. And if it's because he doesn't play younger guys, you can find frustrations, but it's with Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins, who
those are 2 first-round picks.
I know, but that's it.
But guys, I think it comes down to he's not going to play guys that aren't prepared. Like, he understands what it takes to be a great football player in the National Football League. He knows what success looks like, Johnny. And what justice does it do for the Arizona Cardinals
watched Isaiah
organization
Simmons
and
beat
fans
the shit out of other teams.
If you put Isaiah and Zaven out there and they get murdered, what does that do for their confidence?
That tells me that our coaching staff did not have a great plan. Let's just focus on Isaiah for a second. Isaiah Simmons was one of the best college football defenders in all pro sport, or all of college football. And yes, they didn't get their hands on him in the offseason. They didn't know what position he was going to play. But I'm sorry, I do not believe that another defensive coordinator.
What other versatile player like Isaiah Simmons has been successful during this COVID era? I mean, we saw Derwin James get paid today, right? Yeah,
but he was great.
He was before that. He went from
the COVID thing. I don't buy that. I'm sorry. Like the COVID thing.
To drink out of a fire hose, to have to learn 6 different positions like Isaiah Simmons did in his first year.
Why is he learning 6? Why is he learning 6 positions?
Because they want at the end of the day.
If they pick you 9, Johnny.
Well, no, he should play one position and be elite at it, right?
Where are you putting him?
I don't know. That's not my job. That's their job. Their job is to say 9th, 8th overall, you're playing this position, and we expect you to be an all-pro because you went top 10, and that's the game plan. They're reinventing of the wheel, because kiss my ass if you believe that they didn't consult Vance Joseph and say, Vance, can we make this guy a jack of all trades? And he's like, you're not
playing Duke, you're not playing Wake Forest in the NFC West. There's not going to be those
Clemson
opportunities.
Was on national TV,
and we want to talk about Zaven Collins out of Tulsa, and it's Micah Parsons who's playing at linebacker U at Penn State. He was better equipped to handle the NFL. Guys hate on Vance Joseph if you want.
And Micah Parsons runs.
I don't hate Vance Joseph. I think
Micah Parsons runs a 4.4. That could be more of a situation like, hey, he can make up for his mistakes because he's so fast. right? I mean, you're in that difference of a tenth of a second with a 4.4 to a 4.54, 4.56. That can be huge.
Why does Devondre Campbell come to Arizona and flame out at the end of the year and go to Green Bay and become an all-pro linebacker that gets a huge money deal this offseason? Why is Jordan Hicks getting cut and immediately getting signed to a nice contract in Minnesota? It's not just with the rookies now. I think he has an issue with that position getting the most out of it. I've always commended him. He's always been able to manufacture a pass rush, right? I think by and large, he's worked with the talent that he's been given in the secondary, and the front three hasn't been great, but it's just so magnified because they've spent so many resources, free agency and the draft, at these two inside linebacker positions, and we have huge question marks. If anybody had to rank this position group amongst the NFL, they would be bottom tier, and they have used the 16th and the 8th overall pick on this group. These should be the anchors of your defense. We're talking about no money's being spent because you should. This is where your confidence should be. So I want Vance Joseph to succeed. I wrote articles on Go PHNX last year about how he was doing a fantastic job, but I am irritated beyond belief that he has been here for 3 years and he has not developed one elite caliber front seven player. If you want to say he's developed Jalen Thompson, awesome. But give me one player in the front seven in 3 years that he has taken from 2019 to now and made them just a bona fide stud player. You've had 3 years to do that. You haven't done it. And now your defense, in a lot of ways, people are saying, has regressed, and you're shifting in new pieces. So we're starting that clock up again. I didn't mean to get on my soapbox here about old Vance Joseph, but got me riled up, Bo. And I there's probably a disconnect between the front office and the coaching staff too. That's probably a very real thing.
We see
the
Cliff
left
in the
hand
war
doesn't
room,
know
right?
what the right hand's doing sometimes, guys. And Vance, you got to make decisions based on salary and numbers, and I think that was a situation with Jordan Hicks. Like, they couldn't have Isaiah competing with Jordan, and they needed to get him out of here because they wanted to create the best environment for Zaven to be successful. And I think that's what happened with that. And in terms of like you said, John, he's been able to manufacture pressure. I think Bo, to your point, I think that Vance Joseph does a great job defensively. But if you look at even last year, you lose some key pieces, you have some injuries, then you have to start shuffling people around. And that's why you need a guy like Isaiah Simmons to learn 6 positions so he can make up for a lot of potential injuries that happen on his team. And you have a guy that you can move around, play inside the box, play in the exterior, or even single up maybe a wide receiver sometimes. That's the expectations that the coaching staff that we get, about Isaiah Simmons.
A lot to take in there.
Can I tell 91 Claycomb, and I mean this the nicest way, like, let's live in reality here. Like, can you imagine Micah Parsons, what VJ would do with him on the Cardinals defense? That didn't happen. It's Zaven Collins. Can you imagine what we would do with the Patriots would do with the talent? It's like, let's live in reality here as far as what the Cardinals are doing and the personnel they have. It's really going to be interesting to see what happens with Zaven Collins. It's going to be one of the most important things to follow along this entire season from start to finish, the development of him, because we've said it from the very get-go as far as this offseason, since Damien and I joined this podcast. He's like, it's gonna come down to those 2 top picks, those first rounders, to develop and find their way at the NFL level for this defense to have any success, to make up for a key loss like Chandler Jones. It's just going to be so important for them wherever they are on this field because they're relying on them. There's no safety net anymore. There's no Jordan Hicks. There's nothing, that they can kind of fall back on at this point because they're not replacement, caliber players behind them. It's Nick Vigil. It's Tanner Vallejo. It's the Cardinals have left themselves no margin for error, and you see it in how much they invested in the defense. So it's going to come down to them and where they invested it as far as high draft picks, and it's going to be huge for them. And that does fall on VJ's shoulders, and it does fall, of course, on Steve Keim and the scouting and the guys making the decisions in management.
It does fall on everybody else to go get a COVID-19 vaccine so we can all hang out this NFL season. COVID-19 vaccines are free for everybody 5 and up. Those 12 and older are now also eligible for the booster. Visit azhealth.gov/find vaccine for a location nearest to you, Bo.
Let's all just hang out and pop some OGeez. Just hang out, talk some more
I need
football.
one after today, man.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll just imagine like all these different scenarios. It's endless. And we can just flavor our life up with some OGeez. How about you enter the Flavoring Life sweepstakes? One winner will receive three bags of OGeez, including orange creamsicle, any of their tropical flavors. You can get a PHNX shirt of your choice, an OGeez hat, and a PHNX annual membership. Sign up at gophnx.com. That's gophnx.com. And check out OGeez online at OGeezBrands.com. Instagram at OGeez Brands. You can find their products, your local dispensary. You must be 21 years or older to purchase.
Oh man, can we get some transactional news? I was hoping with the release of our guy at linebacker, they would throw us a bone here. We would have a new player to talk about. Who knows? If they do, we'll be here for an emergency pod. Bo is bachelorette this week. His wife, his son have headed to Yuma. Bo's headed there Friday. Right. So, if you're hanging out in your Bo's house, hopefully you got your COVID vaccine. Go hang out.
Damn, pop some OGeez. Bo's business out there.
I know. Damn.
Oh, that's funny.
Damn.
I just met Bachelor Live. We can record as many podcasts as we want here.
If you're watching, you can see it's crazy. I mean, look at that. Whatever this is right here. It's my kid's toy is still in the background.
Check out gophnx.com. Get a membership, 99 cents for the first month, $8.99 for the subsequent month. We have the best t-shirt in the history of this company coming out in just a matter of weeks. Check that out, PHNX Merchandise Locker. You will want to get it before everybody else does because I guarantee this sucker will sell out. It is so fire. I can't wait for you guys to see it. I can't wait to hang out later this week when we do our post-game show for Cards, Baltimore Ravens, when the Cardinals smack around the Ravens, even though they're a 5-point underdog, which is gross. And what else is gross if you're not a member, go PHNX, and you're not subscribing to the PHNX Cardinals podcast, because we do this every day, and we're going to be back mañana. Do me a quick favor, like this video, share it, subscribe. For Damien Anderson, Bo Brock, I'm Johnny Venerable. Peace! And I'm producer. So I can't just do peace. I have to do the end screen as well. Take care, friends.